southwesterns. Stories of sheriffs and outlaws and stagecoach hold-ups and dynamite tossed with reckless abandon. But I never once thought that we had exactly the same kind of history right here. We do. And one story features a gang of goldfield killers to rival any of the American West. And it all happened right here, in the sprawling, brawling gold towns of New Zealand's wild frontier. New Zealand has a past filled with people who thought she'll be right, when more often than not, it wasn't. Join me as we celebrate these true stories of the history that history tried to forget. The great thing about a gold rush is that anyone can become filthy rich in an instant. All you need is a gold pan or a gun. To help mine these true tales of extraordinary New Zealanders, I'm using some ordinary New Zealanders, including some nuggety mining types that I get to run backwards and forwards quite a lot. And keep your eye out for the longest single take in the entire series, as we tell the yarn from our Wild West that we call the Ballad of the Burgess Gang.
Well, the Wild West had its cowboys as bad as they could hang. But no Sundance Kid or Jesse James could top the Burgess Gang. I'd say they've left a trail of tears, but dead men they can't cry. If Burgess sees you standing there, well, son, you're bound to die.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming. The facts. A few days ago, on the 13th of June 1866, 4 businessmen left Canvastown and Marlborough bound here to Nelson to bank their gold. As you know, they haven't arrived. The general consensus now is that those 4 unfortunate businessmen have been cruelly murdered to death.
Who could have committed this terrible crime?
I'm glad you asked. Suspicion has fallen upon 4 men. Gentlemen, may I introduce you to the vicious, the violent, the notorious, the bloodthirsty Burgess Gang. Burgess, Kelly, Levy, Sullivan. Now, I know what you're thinking, gentlemen. You're thinking no one could possibly look like that. As it turns out, they do. I think you'll find they look uncannily like that, particularly Levy. Look at that. Spitting image.
That's uncanny.
They were in town a few days before the men's disappearances, absolutely poverty-stricken. Now, they're back. When the 4 were last in Nelson, they were so scruffy that locals described them as looking fly-blowing. That's not a compliment. And here they are, freshly attired, cleanly shaved, and throwing money about with the gay abandon of a finance company director. Thank you. Of course, it isn't unusual to go from rags to riches in a day. There is a gold rush on, after all, and people are hitting pay dirt on a fairly regular basis. In Wellington, a Mrs. Seelig found gold in the gizzard of a duck, while in Hokitika, gold was discovered clinging to dirt on potatoes. Unsurprising then that within 2 years of gold being discovered on the west coast, the European population went from, well, none to 29,000, all of them desperate to make their fortune. Gentlemen, please! And most of them were men. There were a few female prospectors, the most famous of them being Biddy of the Buller. She once told her life story to a church-going lady friend who considered it too scandalous to repeat. That might be because Biddy arrived here in the 1860s with 2 men. Either, neither, or both could have been her husband. No one knows. The 3 of them lived, smoked, and drank together for years, canning for gold hip-deep in freezing West Coast rivers. This must have been unpleasant for Biddy because she was only 4 feet tall, which I guess is why she's standing on this bench, so she isn't hidden behind that cabbage. This is not my favourite photograph of a New Zealand cabbage, though. That'd be this one, cleverly entitled The Camp, the Cook, and the Cabbage. She's going to make a fortune out of that cabbage, because they did say there was actually more money in feeding miners than there was in gold. Gold! Gold! Excuse me, got a rush. Unlike the Burgess Gang, most people on the goldfields tried to make an honest go of it. This is Reuben Waite, and he's brought a boatload of prospectors to Hokitika before there's even a Hokitika to come to. And he's now busy selling them everything they need to get the gold that he claims is here. Waite told the prospectors there was gold in a nearby creek because that's where local Maori told him it was to be found. But after days of searching, the only thing the prospectors discover is that there is no gold to be had. A gold rush without any gold is called a duffer rush, and causing one is a very serious goldfield crime. The prospectors are not happy.
I'm not happy. Neither am I.
Some people who started duffer rushes had their heads shaved or were horsewhipped, or had their heads shaved and were horsewhipped.
Gentlemen, please, there's no need for violence. Look,
But Reuben Waite manages to calm the angry mob simply by buying back all the tools he'd sold them. The prospectors' dreams are crushed. They've wasted time and money hoping to strike it rich, and now there is nothing to do but wait for the boat to take them back to Nelson and pray they haven't missed another rush somewhere else. But just as the prospectors are about to leave, the Hokitika Gold Rush is back on. Turns out they've been looking in the wrong creek. But the miners have a problem. No tools.
Quiet, please. Circumstances have changed, but so has the price. Okay.
Reuben Waite is only too happy to resell the men the tools he was forced to buy back from them. With a hefty markup, of course, because on the goldfields, everyone wants to get rich quick. Otago businessman Jock Graham thought he would make his fortune by helping miners fight off the constant plagues of rats. His solution? Mousetraps? No. Poison? No. He imported 100 cats. How do you even get 100 cats? Start with 2 and wait? Regardless, it was a brilliant idea. Or it would have been, if someone hadn't beaten him to it. Which begs the question, what do you do with 100 cats nobody wants?
Casserole! Hot casserole!
Oh, thank you.
Casserole! Hot casserole!
Yes, please.
And because miners were starved of news and entertainment, some people made an absolute fortune by auctioning off newspapers to the highest bidder. Mr. Waite, I will swap this cat for that newspaper.
Nope.
What if I throw in a picture of a man with a giant cabbage?
Deal.
There we go. Now, the sudden wealth of the Burgess gang didn't spring from cats or newspapers, so suspicions are aroused. But the government has nothing to link the gang with the murdered men. So, they offer an amnesty and a £400 reward. The police arrest the Burgess gang, inform them of the amnesty, and hope that one of them will crack.
The gold, it brings a fever on, the gold gets in your blood. For dreams of gold, you'll take the coal and live your life in mud. There's gold, they say, in them there hills, gold in the riverbeds. And any man who brings a pan can get rich quick, they said.
4 men are missing in the hills above Nelson, and the 4 members of the Burgess gang are in jail suspected of their murders. They take their name from their leader, Richard Burgess, 5 foot 4 inches of pure, unadulterated evil. Born in poverty in London, he was flogged for pickpocketing before he was even 16. He was then transported to Melbourne, where he spent 10 years in leg irons in the bottom of a rotting prison hulk. From the moment he arrived here in 1862, he was in trouble with the law. After an attempted escape from Dunedin prison, he received 36 lashes. Enraged, he vowed to take 1 life for every stroke he received. And it's entirely possible he did, as he lurked around the goldfields, robbing and murdering men. Well, but how did he get away with it? It was simple. At the time, men often travelled alone through perilous terrain. If they disappeared, no one would ever really know what exactly it was that happened to them. It was a constant fear, especially for men such as this. That is Dugdale Walmsley, and he is a gold buyer. It is one of the most dangerous jobs on the goldfield. He travels alone to isolated mining camps armed only with large amounts of cash. He then returns home with large amounts of gold. At least, that's the plan. It doesn't help that Dugdale Walmsley is one of the unluckiest men on the coast. He is currently being robbed of 824 ounces of gold. That's 23 kilograms. Which, at today's prices, is worth around about $1 million. It's bad. But more embarrassingly, a few years from now, a nail will punch a hole in this saddlebag, and a fortune and gold sovereigns will fall out, one by one, onto the track, meaning that for a short period of time, the road to Greymouth, thanks to Walmsley, was literally paved with gold. But the one stroke of luck that Walmsley has is that this dastardly group of stick-up artists is not the Burgess gang, because if it was, he'd be dead. But I think you'll agree with me, Walmsley, that when it comes to stories of the goldfields, there is one notable omission. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that is stories of the Māori, whom it seems Tahu no one ever really bothers to mention.
Māori knew about gold, no doubt about it, but the value was lost on them. You know, it was a shiny object, You know, find a big gold nugget, toss it to the kids, they have a bit of a play around. For them, they only had one gold as we know it, and that was their greenstone, of course.
Is it an oddly sort of European mineral, isn't it? It's not very much good for, it wasn't useful.
No, you couldn't carve it and put an edge on it, couldn't cut bloody butter with it, let alone chop your enemy's blinking head off. So as a collective, it held little value, but it didn't take them long as individuals to realise that there might be some return for this newfound taonga that were driving the Pākehā population crazy.
Were there a lot of Māori who went out and did prospecting?
Oh, sure. Look, once the individuals that were that way inclined understood what was going on at a personal level, many of them really got stuck in and did make a significant amount of money. Probably the most famous being Dan Ellison, moving across to the far side of the Shotover River where no one else had gone, pulling his dog out of the water and finding gold in the coat, and then walking out with pounds and pounds and pounds of gold. He was of the nature to take that and turn it into something. He went to help other people. He supported Te Whiti. He put his gold money into the village to grow parihaka. He had children that were doctors and lawyers and All Blacks. And so he exposed, in some respects, a very important lesson that with the resources, these things are possible, regardless of who you are or where you're from.
It's hard to believe now that it was almost that easy, that your dog could be covered in gold. But I guess the most pressing question of the moment is, did the Burgess gang kill the missing men?
Good question.
Thank you. And it's exactly the question that the police in Nelson are currently asking. The Burgess gang have been sweating it out in the town's jail, but they're now ready to talk.
We had nothing to do with those murders.
Each of the gang members' stories seems oddly similar.
We had nothing to do with those murders.
We had nothing to do with those murders.
Apart from Sullivan. They did it. And with that, Richard Burgess, William Levy and Thomas Kelly are charged with the 4 Mangatapu murders and put on trial. The entire town turns out to hear Burgess conduct his own defence.
It all began in the West End of London. I never knew my father. I was the fruit of his betrayal. And from then everything went downhill.
Burgess holds the good people of Nelson spellbound with his lurid tales of wrongdoing.
And he tried to scream, but nothing came out.
His entire defence turns out to be nothing but a 5.5-hour confession of violence and serial murder.
Turned out it was the wrong guy.
You can actually read about this in his autobiography, The Confessions of Richard Burgess, The Mangatapu Murders and Other Grisly Tales. Well, that seems clear. A guilty plea should be a mere formality. Richard Burgess, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Yes, seriously, whatever will happen next.
They stand now in the courtroom for murders on the charge. Is Burgess the worst criminal that ever roamed at large? Do Levy, Kelly, Burgess now see doom before their eyes? A gallows stark and tall against the blue of Nelson's skies. The blue of Nelson's skies.
Order! The records show it is August of 1866. The country is captivated by the trial of the Burgess gang, the alleged Mangatapu murderers. Burgess, Levy and Kelly deny all knowledge of it, but the prosecution's star witness, Sullivan, has quite a different story.
They done it.
And you didn't kill anyone?
Well, I did shoot the horse.
Order! Burgess, Levy and Kelly, I hereby find you guilty of the 4 murders and sentence you to death by hanging. Not so fast, Mr. Sullivan. You see, during the trial it emerged that there was a 5th killing, the murder of an old flax cutter by the name of Jamie Battle. And because it was a murder about which nobody previously knew anything, there was thus no amnesty. Who could possibly have killed poor old Jamie Battle? Based solely on the evidence of the condemned men, the court makes its decision. Thomas Sullivan, for the murder of Jamie Battle, I find you guilty and I sentence you to death by hanging. But this is a bit awkward. You see, the Crown doesn't want a prosecution witness hung, so they commute his sentence to life imprisonment. It's okay though, he gets let out in 7 years. Don't worry though, gentlemen. He goes to Australia where he's known as the New Zealand murderer. He lives in poverty. No one will sell him anything. No one will buy anything from him. And because fate has a strange kind of poetry, he eventually dies at a place called Hanging Rock. It's the morning of the execution of the Burgess gang. Richard Burgess whistles jauntily and congratulates the police on a job well done.
Nice one, mate. Thanks for the soup.
In the dawn's early light, the crowd waits in eager anticipation, unaware of the fact that they are about to hear some of the greatest last words in New Zealand's history.
I go to the drop as cheerfully as I would my own wedding.
What do you make of the noose kissing, Nigel?
It's a bit it's a bit over the top. It's done for effect. I'm just not sure that I'd buy it. You know?
A man who knows he's building his own legend.
Well, it has that sort of I'm on the stage and the spotlight's on me. He just doesn't quite work out that actually it's a gallows.
Get a sense of sort of a real narcissism about him.
Yeah, I think if you were to test him, you'd find he rated really high for things like those callous and emotional traits, so a lack of empathy for other people. I would imagine fairly narcissistic as well. Kind of the world revolves around me. And pretty low on self-control because he was a criminal but not a very good one. You know, like he kept doing crimes but he kept getting caught.
This was America. You know, he would be, I suppose, our Jesse James, our Billy the Kid. There'd be movies about him, there'd be books about him. You'd go to the stage show. Here, nobody knows anything about him.
Ironically, that's part of what he wanted. Like, he wanted to create this idea that he was this sort of bushrangering type heroic figure when really he was just a murdering thug, really.
The biggest serial killer that we've had?
Yeah, I think he was a really, really bad man. He despite the fact that he portrays himself as this articulate guy, and he wrote this very sort of flowery autobiography, he is basically just a murderer going around murdering people. Like, he made a career out of it. He offed a bunch of people. He was a very bad man.
5 foot 4 inches of pure unadulterated evil.
He pretty much was. Yeah, he pretty much was.
Oh, look. Here they come. You'd think the hangman would be a professional, but actually he's just a fellow prisoner called Clark. For his services, Clark will receive his freedom, a small cash payment,
That is a nice tie.
and the clothes of the condemned men.
Don't choke me!
He actually said that. The crowd falls silent. The only sound, the footsteps of the executioner as he walks across the wooden platform to the lever. Burgess falls and is killed. Levy falls and is killed. Kelly falls and his body begins to twitch and dance at the end of the rope, and he twitches and dances for such an inordinately long period of time that everyone becomes quite uncomfortable. Eventually, the hangman jumps up onto the body and he bounces up and down on it for several minutes until eventually movement stopped and justice is said to be done. Right. Half an hour later, they cut down the bodies, shave their heads and beards, and make these plaster casts. Behold the death masks of Burgess, Levy and Kelly, the notorious Burgess gang. I can only imagine they did this because it's Nelson, and boy, do they love pottery. Those death masks and a monument to the murdered men are all that remain of the Burgess gang. Or that, and a story to rival any from the Wild West. Come on, horse, let's go. All right, well, you guys go at your own pace if you like. Down this way. No, this way. Yeah, we're going this way. Tally-ho. Yeah. I mean, unless you want to go the other way. Go there. Come on. There we go. Good boy.